Welcome to webinar number 10 from the PACE Pilot Implementation Series. I'm excited because in today's webinar, we're going to enter the last phase of the PACE system, which is the achievement phase. And I'm excited because each and every one of you have been through this journey along with your team and have taken action one step at a time to reach this point. And I can promise you that what you're going to be learning in this phase of the PACE Pilot Implementation Series will change the way you do business forever. So are you ready? If you're ready, turn to the person next to you, give them a high five and say, I'm ready. Brilliant. So the objective of this entire PACE Pilot Implementation Series was to set you on a fast track to build a win-win-win business. Remember, win-win-win is the foundation of everything we do. Our intention is to create a business which adds value to customers so that the customer wins, which adds value to the team members by providing them career growth and financial growth so that the team members win, and which adds value to the business owner from the point of view of providing business growth and time freedom so that the business owner wins. And this can be possible only when the team and the business owner come together, collaborate with each other to create value for the customer and take the business performance to a whole new level so that the business can be ready to fulfill the aspirations of the team as well as the business owner. Now, how do we do this? We do this by implementing the PACE system. You've been going through this webinar series and implementing this system one step at a time. So let's review what are the 5 stages of the PACE system. The first stage of the PACE system was the aspiration creation stage. This is the stage where you defined where do you want to go, where do you want to reach as a business, what do you want to achieve as individuals and as a team, and what is that common purpose that drives you to achieve that goal, and you named this goal. From here, we went into the second stage, which was the analysis stage. This was the stage where you listed out all your problems, all your limitations, all your obstacles, anything that can come in the way of you achieving that aspiration goal. And we did a root cause analysis to identify what is actually coming in the way. Then we went into the third stage of the PACE system, which was the awareness stage. This was the stage where you realized that to accelerate performance, we need to enhance clarity, competence, and culture. And we went deep into each one of these elements of clarity, competence, and culture to understand how do we measure these elements so that we can accelerate them and thereby accelerate the performance of our business. Then we went to stage number 4, which was in the previous webinar video where you learned the action planning stage. This is where I shared with you the 4 quadrants of action planning, and we looked at how as businesses the biggest mistake we can make is just plan for achieving the sales target and the operations project plan. We need to think holistic, and that's where I taught you the 4 quadrants of action planning as well as the 4 principles of action planning, because we need to think action planning in the right manner. Otherwise, we'll end up making the business owner or 1 or 2 capable people on the team like cattle, and the entire burden will be on them. So you learned this in the action planning stage. In today's webinar, we're going to get started with the achievement stage. In this phase of the PACE system is where the actual game begins. Think about it. Up to this point, whatever you've done has just been preparation. Yes, I repeat myself. Whatever you've done so far is just preparation. You've just set the aspiration goal. You've done an analysis of what can come in the way. You've gotten aware to what are those key elements you need to focus on, and you've created an action plan. The first 4 stages of the PACE system are just preparation. The real game begins now. The action begins now in the achievement stage. And to take you through this learning of the achievement stage, I want to first prepare you so that you understand what's coming your way. You're going to be learning a system in this stage, and this is the system you will use to accelerate the performance of your business. This is the system you will use to achieve that aspiration goal that you have set. So, are you excited to learn the system of achievement? If you're excited, turn to the person next to you, give them a high five and say, I'm excited. Come on, do it. Brilliant. So the system I'm going to be teaching you for the achievement stage is called the STOP system. Everybody write this down. It's called the STOP system. Now the STOP system is a performance review system. Let me tell you why it is critical to have a performance review system. Now what happens in most businesses is we set goals, but we don't really review from time to time whether we are on track for those goals or not. How many of you have experienced that? Now, the only way to achieve a goal is to constantly keep checking whether we are moving in that direction or we need to do some course correction to be on track to achieve those goals. Now, that is possible by using a template or a mechanism which I'm going to be teaching you today, which is called as the STOP system. Now, STOP essentially is a performance review meeting system. What STOP stands for is not just the fact that the word stop means that you need to stop in your business to review, but at the same time what STOP actually means is strategic, tactical, operational performance review meetings. Let me repeat that. Strategic, tactical, operational performance review meetings. So S stands for strategic, T stands for tactical, O stands for operational, and P stands for performance review meetings. Now fundamentally, these are three different types of performance review meetings which are essential for any and all businesses. Every single business needs all three types of performance review meetings. Yes, I repeat myself. Every single business needs all three types of performance review meetings. Even if you are a solopreneur or whether you are an SME owner or you are a multinational corporation owner, you need all three types of performance review meetings in your business. Now I know for a fact that some of you have quarterly meetings, some of you have a monthly meeting structure, some of you have weekly meetings, and some of you do daily meetings. Now irrespective of what structure you are already using, I'm going to urge you to adopt this system blindly. Let me tell you this, in the last 11 plus years of hand-holding entrepreneurs and organizations to accelerate their performance, there is nothing more powerful than what I'm going to be teaching you over this webinar and the next two webinars. So make sure you follow the system. Come on, turn to the person next to you and say, let's follow the system. Thank you. Now, let's dive into, in today's webinar, just the first type of meeting, which is called as strategic meeting. And then over the next couple of webinars, we look at the tactical and operational meeting. Now, each one of these meetings have a different timeline and a different frequency. So today we will be focusing just on you understanding what is the strategic review meeting template. And I'm going to give you a template for this. Use the template. Use it without making changes, because this template has been created after trial and error with thousands of businesses. So are you ready to learn the strategic performance review meeting template? If you're ready, turn to the person next to you, give them a high five and say, I'm ready. Thank you. Now, let's look at the frequency of the strategic meeting. The strategic meeting is something that you do once in 45 days in your business. Please make a note of the meeting frequency. It's once in 45 days. Now, some people ask me, Rajiv, why don't we do this meeting on a monthly basis? Or why don't we do this meeting on a quarterly basis? Now, here's my response. I believe for a small and medium business, 1 month is too short a time to measure and deliver results. And at the same time, quarterly, which is once in 90 days, is too long a time to measure and deliver results. I believe 45 days is a great median, and I would urge you to use this meeting structure once in 45 days. Now, those of you who are comfortable with a monthly review format, feel free to adopt the same template in your monthly meetings. But my inclination still is going to be that you do the strategic meeting once in 45 days. This is just purely out of my experience of working with thousands of entrepreneurs. So while the meeting frequency is once in 45 days, the duration of meeting is 1 full day. It's an 8-hour schedule. Yes, you heard it right. The duration of the meeting is 1 full day. Now, the moment I say the duration of the meeting is 1 full day, I know what's running in most of your minds. Most of you are thinking, oh my God, this is going to be really boring. Now, I know that for most people, they hate meetings purely because most meetings are meaningless. Most meetings are just long conversations without any decision or without any closure. Now, I understand that. But what I promise you with the stop meeting structure that I'm going to be teaching you, that these meetings are going to be more entertaining than even watching a movie. In fact, once you adopt this system fully, people on your team would prefer to attend a meeting rather than go watch a movie. That's my challenge to each and every one of you. So follow the template, because the way we've designed this template is actually to overcome what I call fatigue of meetings for people. Most people tend to avoid meetings because they get bored, because those meetings are meaningless. There's no real conversation and no real decision happening over there. But what you will see with the strategic, tactical and operational meeting structure that we are going to be teaching you, that these meetings are powerful, these meetings are engaging, and these meetings are the playground of high performance in your business. So while I say 8 hours, 1 full day for strategic meeting, trust me on the agenda, and as we go along you will realize why you need these 8 hours. So in essence, what I'm saying is that you need to stop in your business once in 45 days for 1 full day, get your team together and follow the structured agenda of the strategic meeting template. So are you ready to learn the structured agenda of the strategic meeting template? If you're ready, turn to the person next to you, give them a high five and say, I'm ready. Come on, do it. I can watch you. Thank you for giving them a high five. Now, let's break down the objectives of the strategic meeting template. There are fundamentally 4 objectives to this strategic meeting template. The first objective of the strategic meeting template is called completion. Everybody, please write that word. It's called completion. Now, what this objective means is that we need to use the strategic meeting to complete by doing a holistic review of the previous 45 days. So the first agenda of the strategic meeting is to do a completion exercise to completely review the previous 45 days in terms of what has happened and what has not happened. Now, of course, when you do this meeting for the first time, this objective is irrelevant, because you did not really design and define what has to be done in the previous 45 days. But from the second strategic meeting, the objective of completion comes into play, where we need to do a holistic review of the previous 45 days. So that is the first objective, completion. The second objective of the strategic meeting is competence development. Everybody, please write that word, competence development. Now, one of the core objectives of the strategic meeting is that every individual on the team gives feedback to every other individual on the team. Yes, you heard that right. Every individual on the team gives feedback to every other individual on the team. That's how we facilitate competence development for every single person on the team using this meeting agenda. Now, how do we do it? How many people should be there in the meeting? All of those questions will be answered as I go along. For now, just make a note of the objectives. So, first objective, completion. Second objective, competence development. Then comes the third objective. The third objective of the strategic meeting is creation. Everybody write that down. Is creation. Now, the objective of creation is for you to engage your team in applying the PACE system once in 45 days to create the goals for the coming 45 days. So that's the objective of creation, to engage your team using the PACE system to create the goals for the coming 45 days. So what we do is we take your annual goal as a business and break it down into strategic goals, which are goals for the next 45 days. So that's how we use the strategic meeting template. And the final agenda of the strategic meeting is celebration. Write that down. It is celebration. Now this is where we need to identify and recognize people who are high performers, teams who are contributing. So here are the 4 objectives of a strategic meeting. The first objective is completion, so to make sure that there's a holistic review of the previous 45 days. The second objective is competence development, to ensure that every team member gets feedback from every other team member. The third objective is creation, which is to create the goals for the coming 45 days. And the fourth objective is celebration, where we recognize and highlight key contributors so that everybody knows who they are and they feel special for what they do for the organization. Now, keeping these 4 objectives in mind, we have a structured agenda for the strategic meeting. Please follow this agenda to the T. Now, each one of you would have received an email which has the strategic meeting template in a soft copy format. Make sure you have that with you while you're watching this video, because I'm going to take you through that entire agenda in a step-by-step manner. So, are you ready with the strategic meeting template so that I can take you through it in a step-by-step manner? Brilliant. So let's get started with the structured agenda. Now, if you look at the template in itself, there are multiple columns. The first column you see is that of the time column, and we've highlighted how much time needs to be invested into each item of the agenda. Now, here is the ground rule. The ground rule is you stick to the time allocated for that agenda, and if your agenda exceeds beyond that time, then you stop the agenda, leave it incomplete and move to the next item on the agenda. Now, I know that can get frustrating sometimes, but that is perfectly okay. Because until and unless you don't cut people off and say, hey, listen, we had 10 minutes for this part of the meeting, 10 minutes is done, we move to the next conversation. Unless and until we don't start doing that, people will not start honoring time. People will go into stories then, and then the meaning of the meeting collapses. So I want us to make sure that we stick to time no matter what, and with every meeting we improve our communication, make sure we are crisp, make sure we are clear, make sure we are precise and to the point, so that we get the meeting done within the time framework. This is a great way of improving people's communication as well. If you don't hold them to time, then they will continue telling you sagas and stories, which is what we don't want. We don't want to dilute the energy of the meeting. So everybody turn to the person next to you and say, stick to time. Come on, do it. Stick to time. Yes. The first couple of times it may be awkward. The first couple of times you will naturally overshoot in some items on the agenda, but do not tolerate it. Do not say it's the first time, let's continue, let's finish this, next time onwards we'll stick to time. It doesn't work that way. You cut it off then and there and say, okay guys, let's move to the next item on the agenda. So let there be that incompletion, let there be that frustration, so next time there is change. Because remember one thing, if you tolerate extension of time, you will never be able to change it. Because whatever you tolerate in your life, you can never change it. If you want to change something, you have to not tolerate it. And therefore, time is a very important essence. Do not tolerate extension of time. Otherwise, you will not change it. So that I want to establish it right from the start. So even if you feel offended, I'm perfectly okay with that, as long as a group and as a team, we stick to time and evolve our communication with every strategic meeting so that we comply by the time allotted in each item of the agenda. So the first element is time on the agenda sheet that you see. The next part is the agenda itself, and I will take you through that agenda in a step-by-step manner. From there, the next column that you see is that of the name of the facilitator. Now again, there's a reason I have put a column there called facilitator, because each item on the agenda can be facilitated by different people on the team so that everybody is involved. However, at the end of this webinar, I'm going to recommend who becomes a facilitator when, so please hold on for that instruction as well. Now, the other two parts of the agenda sheet that you see is highlights and key action points. Now, this is where you can have somebody in the meeting who's making the minutes of the meeting, who's being the scribe and making pointers of what are the highlights and what are the action steps that we decide in the meeting. So make sure you allocate that role as well to somebody on the team. Now, let's get started with understanding the agenda of the strategic meeting template. Now, as you can see, the first 10 minutes is to keep in mind the objective number 1, which is the objective of completion. The first 10 minutes is about highlighting the key breakthroughs and key achievements to the team of the previous 45 days. It's very important to give people a macro view of the business and share with them what are the positives that have happened in the business in the previous 45 days. So the first 10 minutes is for that. The next 10 minutes is also the continuation of the completion objective. This is where we share what have been the key challenges and key breakdowns of the business in the previous 45 days. So in total, if you look at the first 20 minutes, it's about sharing with people the good news of the previous 45 days and the bad news of the previous 45 days. Now it's very important to share both with people, because that's when people are connected to the holistic view of the business. Now I have seen a lot of business owners, some of them have the habit of sharing only positives with the team, because they believe the team should be told only what is positive and the team should not be shared what are the negatives and the challenges in the business. Now I don't completely endorse and agree to this point of view, because if you're sharing only positives, then some of your team members don't really respect you, because they feel, you know what, my boss always talks only positives, he does not address what are the challenges. I don't think he has the capability to see the ground reality. So you lose out as a leader on your credibility, because people feel you're disconnected from reality. If there are challenges, it's important to acknowledge that there are challenges. So only positives is not a healthy approach. On the other extreme, I see some leaders who only share negatives. They only like to be frustrated in front of their team members and share what are all the problems that are happening in their business. Now I want you to understand this. This again steals you of your credibility as a leader, because people feel disconnected. People feel, look, I know there are challenges, but there are things that are working well as well. Why don't you talk about that? People like leaders who are real. People like leaders who are balanced. So in the first 20 minutes of the agenda, we would like for you to give people a balanced view of the business. Tell them what are the key achievements and what are the key breakdowns of the business. So this is a great way of doing a holistic review of what has happened in the previous 45 days. Now, like I said earlier, the first 20 minutes of the meeting, which addresses the objective of completion, is relevant only from the second strategic meeting. In the first strategic meeting, this agenda can be ignored because you did not set up what needs to happen in the previous 45 days in the first place. So that's what you do in the first 20 minutes. Now from here, you move to the next objective, which is competence development. Now, as a part of this objective, you've been given 90 minutes as per this template. And in 90 minutes, we need to facilitate a feedback exercise where every person on the team gives feedback to every other person on the team. So, would you like to learn how people can give feedback within 90 minutes to every single person on the team and receive feedback from every single person? Would you be interested in learning that? If yes, raise your hands. Thank you. Now, let me tell you this firstly on how many team members can be a part of a strategic meeting. Now, if you're a solopreneur, you use this template by yourself with yourself. All by yourself with yourself, you use this template and do a strategic review of yourself. Now, if you're a micropreneur, which means you have a team size anywhere between 2 people to 20 people, you have all the 20 people in the strategic meeting present. Even if they are blue collar, it does not matter. Have all of them present in the strategic meeting, because you will see that the beauty of having even your blue collar labor staff in this meeting is that when they are a part of it consistently, they get a macro view and they become more responsible in the business in their role. So don't even make the mistake of discarding them, saying there's no point of having them in the meeting. So if you're a micropreneur with 2 people to 20 people, all the 20 people are present in the meeting. Now, if your organization strength is more than 20, all the way up to 1,000 people, then you are an SME. Now, as an SME, what I would recommend is you have a strategic meeting at the level of department heads, and you make sure that the department heads have strategic meeting with their department teams. So fundamentally, you will be having 2 strategic meetings. One is the business owner and the department heads together, and the other would be the department heads along with their team members. Now, the maximum number of people that can be present in a strategic meeting is not exceeding 20 people. So if you have a department which is more than 20 people, then I'm sure you will have a hierarchy of a supervisor or a team lead or a team manager below the department head, and below these supervisors, team leads and team managers, you will have teams. So make sure that it's not more than 20 people in a strategic meeting. That's the rule of thumb to follow in this template. Now, keeping in mind that we are not going to have more than 20 people in a strategic meeting, would you be interested in learning how 20 people can give and receive feedback from all the 20 people? Would you be interested in learning that? Yes? Brilliant. So firstly, let me tell you what we need to do in this 90 minutes of competence development section in the strategic meeting. What we need to do firstly is educate our teams on the meaning of feedback. Most people look at feedback as a negative response or as a negative activity, and because their association to the word feedback is negative, most people become defensive. Now what I want you to understand is feedback is not negative. Feedback in fact is a neutral response. Feedback in fact is a mechanism of telling people what they did well, what they did not do well, and what they need to do differently. So feedback is actually a direction giver. The problem is that most people have started looking at feedback as a negative exercise because in the name of feedback, they have only seen people removing their frustration. Please understand, feedback is not venting your frustration on people. Feedback needs to be balanced, and therefore we use a method for giving balanced feedback which is called the sandwich technique of giving feedback. Yes, you heard it right. It's called the sandwich technique. Now when you make sandwich, what do? On one side of the sandwich, you apply butter. Now in feedback, the first thing you do is you tell people what they are doing well, which is nothing but applying butter. Now while I'm saying applying butter, I mean the feedback should be authentic. If it's a lie, people get your intention. So please keep the feedback authentic. So the first part is the positive part, applying of butter, what you did well. Then what you do while making a sandwich is you cut the vegetables. So you put the veggies in the sandwich. Now the process of cutting the vegetables is the painful process. Now this is also the second part of giving feedback. This is where you tell people what they are not doing well. This is the painful part of the feedback. But it's very important to tell people what they are not doing well. Because unless and until we don't articulate for people what they are not doing well, they don't see it and they don't change it. So first part of the sandwich, apply butter. So tell people what they are doing well. Second part of the sandwich, cut the veggies. So tell people what they are not doing well. And third part of the sandwich is where you don't apply butter again. If you're thinking apply butter again, then you are consuming too much butter. What you need to apply on the next part of the sandwich, on the other side of the bread, is some kind of flavor, some kind of sauce, some kind of chutney or pickle, okay, which gives the sandwich flavor. So this is where you need to give the third part of feedback, which is you need to tell people what they need to do differently. Please make a note of this question, what they need to do differently. So let's understand the sandwich technique of giving feedback. What they did well, what they did not do well, what they need to do differently. Now if you see, the third part is giving people direction. This is what you're supposed to do differently. Now when you give people feedback using the sandwich technique, you're giving them balanced feedback. You're telling them positive, negative, and giving them a direction. This is what constructs a great feedback. So please understand that we are not talking about feedback as an activity of removing frustration. We are talking about feedback as a development activity where we tell people what they are doing well so that they know what they need to continue doing. We tell people what they are not doing well so they know what they need to stop doing. And we tell people what they need to do differently so they know exactly what needs to change. So tell the person sitting next to you, give me sandwich feedback. Come on, do that. Tell them, give me sandwich feedback. Great. So firstly, we need to clarify the understanding of the word feedback to our team members. It's not a negative response, it's a development activity. It has to be balanced, where we need to tell people what they're doing well, not doing well, and need to do differently. Now, while we educate people about this aspect, we also need to clarify for them that when it comes to the chance of giving each other feedback, there are two traps to avoid. The first trap to avoid is to be diplomatic. You know, sometimes when we are put in the situation to give people feedback, we tend to be diplomatic. We tend to be nice. We tend to cover it up. Now let me tell you something. If you identify anybody as being diplomatic, please stop them and ask them to give balanced feedback. We don't need diplomacy. We need reality. And the reality has to be balanced. Doing well, not doing well, need to do differently. So the first trap of feedback is diplomacy. It dilutes the impact of the feedback. You're not doing justice to the person you're giving feedback to by being diplomatic. The second trap to avoid while giving feedback is to use feedback as a method of venting your frustration, to use feedback as a method to play politics, to use feedback as a method to put people down. Now please understand, feedback is not a character assassination activity. It's a development activity. So please understand this as a team and commit to each other. No diplomacy, no frustration. Balanced feedback, that should be your commitment. And even after making this commitment, even after me highlighting this on this video, if you see people being diplomatic or giving frustration, giving out their frustration to people using the feedback exercise, then stop them and give them feedback on their feedback. Tell them what they are doing well, what they are not doing well, what they need to do differently, and make them give feedback again till they get it balanced. Please understand, the objective is competence development of others. So we need to come from a background and a context of care for the other person, not as an agenda of ourselves of I need to look good in their eyes or I need to remove my frustration and put this person down. That's not the objective of feedback. So is that clear to everybody? If that's clear, turn to the person sitting next to you, give them a high five and say, that's clear to me. Brilliant. So now I have told you what is the context of feedback. Now let me teach you how can 20 people give feedback to 20 people within 90 minutes. Would you be interested in learning that? Yes? Brilliant. Now, here's how we do it. What I want each and every one of you to do is I want you to take a A4 size sheet. Everybody take a loose sheet, a blank sheet, and right on top of the sheet, I want you to write your own name and the date of the strategic meeting. So write your name in the center, the date on the left hand side corner, and create 3 columns on that sheet. And let the headers of those 3 columns be what I am doing well, what I am not doing well, what I need to do differently. So I need you to create an A4 size sheet where every person should write their own name and have these 3 columns of what I'm doing well, what I'm not doing well, what I need to do different. Now once you have the sheet, once every person on the team has this sheet in their hand, the next step would be that every person passes their sheet to the person sitting next to them. Now this will go on as a circle where every person has the person sitting next to them, their sheet with themselves. Now what happens next is that we need to write feedback for the person whose sheet is in our own hand. Now while you write the feedback for the person whose sheet you have in your own hand, you need to make sure that you write the feedback at the bottom of the sheet. So in those 3 columns you write it at the bottom, what I'm doing well, what I'm not doing well, what I need to do differently. So for the person whose name, whose sheet you have, write the feedback at the bottom. It should not take you more than 30 to maximum 60 seconds to write feedback. Now, while you're giving feedback, make sure the feedback is specific. What I mean by specific feedback is this. While you're going to be giving people balanced feedback of what they did well, what they did not do well, and what they need to do differently, the parameters of the feedback have to be specific, which means you need to focus the feedback either on their competence iceberg, which is their skills, knowledge, self-image, traits, motive, or on their action and effort, which is the amount of effort they are putting into their work, or on their results. So you need to give feedback to people on the lines of their competence iceberg, action and effort, or on their results. That's when you're giving people specific focus in the balanced framework. Now, think about this. 20 people in a room, each one creates a sheet with their name on top, the date of the strategic meeting, 3 columns, what I'm doing well, what I'm not doing well, what I need to do different, passes the sheet on to every single person next to them, and every person, as they receive another person's sheet, they write down the feedback from the bottom to the top. Now think about it. You write the feedback for your neighbor at the bottom of the sheet. Then what you need to do is you need to fold that part so that it's not visible before you pass your neighbor's sheet to the next person. So the next person should not be able to see what have you written. Now in this way you keep on folding, and finally the sheet comes back to the person whose name is written on top, and they received a folded sheet which looks like a Japanese fan, and they open it up to read the feedback that has been given to them. Now practically, while you do it with 20 people, what you will see is that each person will not write for more than 45 seconds, which means 20 people can receive feedback from 20 other people in not more than 20 minutes. Now while we've given you 90 minutes in this part of the agenda, 10 minutes of this 90 minutes is to clarify to people the understanding of what is feedback, what is balanced feedback, what do we need to give feedback on, what should we be specific about, how we should not use it to vent frustration or be diplomatic. So 10 minutes is for that education. Then 20 minutes is for writing to make sure that the sheets get circulated. After that, the remaining 60 minutes, would you like to know what you need to do? Here's what you need to do. In the remaining 60 minutes, every person stands up one by one and they read out the feedback they've received so that everybody knows what is the feedback that they have received. So everybody reads out, what I'm doing well is this, this and this, what I'm not doing well is this, this and this, and what I need to do different is all of these things. Now this is extremely important because this creates commitment in that person to make the changes, and this also clarifies to the room what is the feedback that the person is receiving. It creates group accountability, which is very, very powerful. Now, the first time you do this in a strategic meeting, I can promise you the quality of the feedback may not be that great. It's okay. Do not give up and give people feedback on the quality of feedback that they are giving. And some people may tell you, but I don't know what that other person does on the team. Now that is bigger feedback because we need to understand what each person is doing on the team. And what you will see with every strategic meeting, which you do once in 45 days, you will see that people's understanding of each other's work increases. So do not give up on the system just by doing one strategic meeting and saying people did not give quality feedback. The more number of strategic meetings you do, the better the understanding of each other increases on the team and the better the quality of feedback becomes. And also, this exercise of giving feedback is a great way of identifying who are your leaders in the team, because the quality of feedback a person gives shows their leadership capability. So you are not just improving the competence of people by them receiving feedback, but you're also improving the competence of people by them giving feedback, because that's when you can identify how holistic does a person think, and that's where you can identify your next line of leaders. So please take this activity with utmost seriousness. You have no idea how doing this once in 45 days can become a game changer for every single person on the team and for the overall business. So make sure you stick to the system even if it is shabby the first time. In fact, let me prepare you. The first time it will be shabby. The next time it will be shabbier. The third time it may be shabbiest. But the fourth time, just because of the fact you stick to the system, you will see a breakthrough and people will start giving better quality feedback. So stick to the system, stick to the template, do not make changes, do not compromise on it. Give people feedback on the quality of their feedback. So let's understand the breakup of the 90 minutes of the feedback exercise. 10 minutes of education, 20 minutes of written feedback, the remaining 30 minutes, the remaining 60 minutes you can use 30 minutes of every person standing up, 1 minute reading out the feedback they've received. Now, what do you do with the sheet once a person has received feedback? What you do is you get every individual to take their sheet and pin it up to their work diary at the back page. So they take the last page of their work diary and they pin up the sheet and fold it and keep it there. When they come to the next strategic meeting, we repeat the same exercise of written feedback, and then every person stands up and reads the feedback they've received in the second strategic meeting. But this time, apart from reading the feedback they've received in this second strategic meeting, they also read out the feedback they received in the last strategic meeting and present to the group what changes they have made. Now you get the essence of how this can become a powerful development activity. I want you to imagine this. Every 45 days, people come together, give each other feedback, specific feedback, balanced feedback, okay? Every person stands up, reads it to the group, and they also read out their previous feedbacks and what changes they've made. How many of you can see this is a great way of developing the competence of every individual on the team? Now that's why you need this 90 minutes. 10 minutes of reclarifying the context and the education behind why to give feedback and how to give feedback. 20 minutes of written feedback. 30 minutes of reading, and the balance 30 minutes of previous feedback, what changes you have made. This can prove to be a performance enhancement tool like nothing else in your business. I can promise you that. So that's the 90-minute agenda of doing the feedback exercise. Now, by completing this 90 minutes, you've completed objective number 2, which is competence development. Then we move to objective number 3. which is creation. Now, this is where it gets a little interesting. So far, through this PACE implementation webinars, each one of you have understood the PACE system. You've understood that the first stage was aspiration creation, the second stage was analysis, the third stage was awareness, the fourth stage was action planning. But in the strategic meeting, you will see something magical happening. Every 45 days, you will apply the 4 stages of the PACE system. The first 4 stages of the PACE system, you will apply it every 45 days in the strategic meeting. Do you want to know how? Here is how. Now, once you've done the completion, which is the first 20 minutes, and then 90 minutes of competence development, then we go into creation using the PACE system. Now, in the creation part, what you do is this. For the first 60 minutes of creation, you create the aspiration goals for the coming 45 days. Now, think about it. By watching this entire webinar series, what you have done is you've created the aspiration goal for the entire year. You've created your financial goals, your customer-centric goals, your team-centric goals, your functional system goals, and your learning-centric goals for the entire year. But in the strategic meeting, what you do is from this annual goals, the goals you've created for the entire year in these 5 parameters, you pick and choose what will we accomplish in the coming 45 days. So what you in essence you are doing is you're breaking up the annual goal into a 45-day goal and saying what are we going to make happen in the next 45 days. So you create an aspiration goal which is financial, customer-centric, team-centric, functional system-centric and learning-centric specifically for the coming 45 days. This is how you do aspiration creation again. Now, apart from creating the specific goal for the team, you also break this goal down to individuals as to in these 5 areas, what will they accomplish individually in the coming 45 days. So you have a team goal and you have an individual goal in these areas. And from there, you also reaffirm the purpose. You reaffirm the why. Remember, you created this powerful why, which becomes the emotional fuel for us to take action. Every 45 days, remind the team of this why. Why are we playing this game? What is the real objective of making sure we achieve these goals? So people are emotionally connected. So what you are doing here in 60 minutes is you are doing the aspiration creation step of the PACE system, but focusing it just for 45 days in comparison to the last 1 year, what you've created for the entire year. So this is about 45 days. From there, you do the second step of the PACE system, which is the analysis stage. For the analysis stage in the strategic meeting, you have 120 minutes. So you have 2 hours in which you'll do the analysis for the problems that can come in the way of you achieving this 45-day goal. I'm repeating myself. In the 120 minutes in the strategic meeting, which is the next item on your agenda, you will do the analysis of problems that can come in the way of you achieving the 45-day goal. So you will do problem listing for 10 minutes, you'll do problem compilation for the next 10-15 minutes, and then from there, you will do root cause analysis using the 5 technique for 10% of the problems in smaller groups, and you'll use the scanning technique for remaining 90% in smaller groups. Now, some of you may wonder, isn't 2 hours too less to do root cause analysis for the problems that we may face? Let me tell you why 2 hours is sufficient. When you do problem listing, what you will realize is some of the problems you've already listed and done root cause analysis for in the analysis stage of watching these webinars. There may be few new unique problems when it comes to this 45-day goal. So if you have problems that you've already done the analysis for, you don't have to do the analysis again. You just need to refer to those root causes and make sure you have an action plan in the action planning stage for fixing those root causes. For the unique problems is where you have this 2 hours time. And based on experience, I can tell you that the unique problems you will list, keeping in mind just the 45-day goal, is not going to be too much. So the 2 hours is sufficient enough time for you to do problem listing and root cause analysis in smaller groups for the unique problems which are focused on this 45-day goal. Now, how many of you are starting to see that through these webinar series, whatever you've done so far was for the entire year, and that was just preparation. Like you did aspiration creation for 1 year, you did analysis for the problems that can come in the way of achieving that aspiration goal for all the goals of that 1 year. But here in the strategic meeting, you're taking a more smaller view on a smaller goal out of that big annual goal, and you're doing the analysis only for that 45-day goal. So this is a more minimized way of implementing the PACE system in your business. So that is the next 120 minutes. From here, the next 90 minutes you use for awareness and action planning. This is where you create a version 1 action plan on the 4 quadrants of action planning. So here's what you do in the next 90 minutes. You do a review of your culture charter. Remember, through this webinar series, you created your culture charter of what is your company's way of dealing with situations and what is not your company's way of dealing with situations. What you do in the strategic meeting is you pull that culture charter out and you ask the team to review that charter and say, are there any new situations and scenarios where state of energy goes down, where relationships become resistant, where commitment is conditional, where performance is filled with reasons. And you get them to list the new situations and scenarios which may not be covered in the culture charter, and get them to do a brainstorming for 10 to 15 minutes of what is our way, what is not our way. In this way, every 45 days, you are evolving your culture and you are updating the culture charter. Now, this is a great hands-on way of making sure people are connected to the culture and you are designing a high-performance culture continuously. So that is one part of action planning, which is review of the culture charter and updating it. The second part in the action planning exercise is you create a competence development plan for every individual on the team for the coming 45 days. So for every individual, you create a learning plan using the PRE model. Who are the people they will learn from? What are the resources they will learn from? What are the experiences they will learn from? Which week who will learn from whom? Who will learn from what resource? So you create a 45-day plan, learning plan for every individual with weekly milestones. So they know every week what they have to do. In this way, you're making sure that people's competence is also getting enhanced, which will contribute to performance acceleration. So are you seeing, using the awareness and action planning structure of 90 minutes, you are enhancing your culture and you are creating a plan for enhancing people's competence. Then from there comes the third quadrant of action planning. Now this is where you create a milestone based target achievement plan based on your sales goals or your operations goals, and you break it up into weekly milestones for that 45-day period again. Remember, everything you're doing in this meeting is focused on the 45-day goal only, not on the annual goal. The 45-day goal is a goal you've derived from the annual goal, but the action planning and preparation is all focused on the 45-day goal. So you break up a target achievement plan on a weekly basis for this entire 45-day goal that you've chosen in your sales and in your operations. So that's where is the third quadrant of action planning. And finally comes the fourth quadrant of action planning, where you create an action plan for what are the functional systems you need to create, what are the functional strategies you need to create, and you break that down into weekly milestones again. Let's just say you realize that you need a recruitment system or you need a marketing system. So you delegate that responsibility on who will create what system, when will it be reviewed, so that you are evolving your functions as well. Now, for this part of the agenda, you have a total of 90 minutes to make sure you have an action plan for all 4 quadrants. And by creating a plan for all 4 quadrants, you are becoming future ready to achieve that aspiration goal. So I hope you are seeing that it is nothing but implementation of the PACE system, keeping a 45-day milestone in mind. And that becomes a very powerful exercise, because every 45 days you're creating aspirations, you're doing an analysis, and you're creating an action plan on all the 4 quadrants, which are very, very critical for accelerating the performance of your business. Now, once you've created weekly plans for all 4 quadrants in those 90 minutes, then you come to the last objective, which is celebration. Now, this is where you have 10 minutes to reward and recognize the key contributors. So come up with your own award system, come up with your own recognition system. Either you give people a certificate or a trophy of a player of the month, team player of the month, performer of the month, or department of the month. whatever you feel is suitable for your business, create an acknowledgement and a celebration mechanism, and for 10 minutes highlight the contributors. Now this is very essential because in most workplaces people leave because they feel unrecognized. So recognize the contributors so that everybody knows who are the role models. It's very important to do it publicly. So this is your strategic meeting template. It starts with completion, which is the first 20 minutes, then competence development, which is 90 minutes of feedback exercise. Then you have the creation exercise where you have 60 minutes of aspiration creation, 120 minutes of analysis, 90 minutes of action planning and awareness, and then 10 minutes of celebration, and close it with a 15-minute overall review where people share what was their key highlight from this meeting, what was their key takeaway from this meeting, what was their key lesson from this meeting. Now you do this once in 45 days. With every strategic meeting, you will see the amount of alignment, the amount of focus, the amount of energy, the amount of motivation, the amount of connection. Everything will increase in your business. I can promise you that. In fact, here's how you got to look at it. Your annual aspiration goal is like a cake. Your 45-day aspiration goal, which is your strategic goal, is like a slice of your cake on the plate. So that's what you will eat in the next 45 days. So you got to look at it like this, that we are going to be eating the entire cake of the annual aspiration goal once in 45 days by cutting a slice out of it. There's no better way than achieving an aspiration goal, because this keeps you on track. And this is beyond just working backwards, because here you're doing analysis of problems every 45 days. You're doing action planning for 4 quadrants every 45 days. And you're truly becoming future ready. It's a phenomenal mechanism. It's extremely powerful and it produces results. So that is the agenda of the strategic meeting. I hope you see the impact and the outcome. It will move you towards your aspiration goal. Do it no matter what. Once in 45 days, no matter what. Now, let me tell you how you use the other parts of the agenda sheet. You see a column there called facilitator. How many of you would be interested in developing second line team of leaders? Raise your hands. How many of you would be interested in becoming second line team of leaders? Raise your hands. Now here's how you build a second line leadership. Now what happens is this: for the first 4 strategic meetings, once in 45 days. So day 1, day 45, day 90, day 135, first 4 strategic meetings, the facilitator of the meeting will be the business owner. So this is the phase where we call it the pilot phase, where the business owner is facilitating the meeting. We do it shabbily, we face challenges, the meeting doesn't go as per plan, but we make sure we cut people short. We are basically getting into the culture of doing the meeting. So the first 4 strategic meetings is where the facilitator is the business owner. Now this phase is called I do, they watch, which means the business owner is doing and the team members are watching. They are participating in the meeting. They are not facilitating the meeting. Now, from meeting number 5, from strategic meeting number 5, which is day number 180, okay, when you do the strategic meeting number 5, from there for the next 4 strategic meetings, so strategic meeting number 5, number 6, number 7 and number 8, next 4 strategic meetings, what you do is this: you divide the responsibility of facilitating this meeting based on the agenda amongst different people. So let's just say business owner says, I will facilitate the completion. I will facilitate first 20 meetings. Person A, you facilitate aspiration creation. Person B, you facilitate feedback exercise. Person C, you facilitate analysis exercise. Person D, you facilitate action planning exercise. Now by giving this responsibility to different people, then you are entering phase 2 of development, which is we do together. So remember, first 4 strategic meetings, business owner is the facilitator, rest are participants. That's the phase of I do, they watch. Next 4 strategic meetings, we keep juggling the agenda between different people as facilitators. So it becomes we do together. And then after the 8th strategic meeting, from the 9th strategic meeting, for the rest of your life, The business owner is not the facilitator. Different team members are the facilitators, and then we enter the phase of they do and I watch for the business owner. So the business owner just plays the role of a coach and gives feedback to the team, while the team becomes the second line leadership and collaborates, takes ownership, holds each other responsible, understands each other's role, and takes complete ownership of the business. This is how you build a second line leadership. So remember this: first 4 strategic meetings, I do, they watch. Next 4 strategic meetings, we do together. And then from there on, from the 9th strategic meeting for the rest of your life, they do, I watch. That's how you build a second line team of leadership. And what you want to see is this: whether you are 20 people doing different roles or your department heads, okay, from different departments, when you start facilitating parts of the meeting, you start understanding each other and you build a connection of interdependence with each other. That's how businesses should be. Most businesses are team member to business owner, team member to business owner. No, there has to be a collaboration between team members. The business owner is only a performance accelerator. The business owner is only a catalyst. So the team members need to be understanding each other's work and working in collaboration. Departments need to understand each other and work in collaboration. The business owner should just play a strategic role. Only then the business can grow and all our aspirations can be met. So I hope you understand why we have the facilitator column in this agenda. I do, they watch, we do together, and then they do, I watch. That's how you build second line team of leaders. So I hope you've understood the strategic meeting agenda and the structure of implementation. Remember, it's once in 45 days for 1 full day, and I can promise you, you stop for 1 full day and get everybody into this, you will see a next level of performance in your business no matter what. So with that, this is Rajiv Taleja signing off. I look forward to each and every one of you implementing the strategic meeting template and sharing your experience with your coach on how you felt by facilitating a strategic meeting. What was the impact, what was the challenges, what were the outcomes, because I can promise you this structure is a game changer for your business, and you can already see how you're going to move on track to achieve your aspiration goal. So this is Rajiv Taleja signing off. Please follow the instructions given to you in the email for facilitating the strategic meeting, and please do share with us your feedback on facilitating the strategic meeting. In the next video webinar, we will be sharing with you the tactical meeting, and finally in the last one we'll be sharing with you the operational meeting. Look forward to seeing you in the next video webinar. Thank you so much.